So child nutrition, these are tomorrow's leaders. And it just surprises me how not many people know what to do regarding child nutrition. So the best food for babies, there's no doubt about it, is breast milk. And breast milk adapts at every single age. One man rang me up and he said, Barbara, my wife, she just had a baby and it's 2 days and she's got no milk. And I said, are you in a maternity hospital? He said, yes. I said, hasn't anyone told you the milk doesn't come in for 3 days? Did you know that? The milk doesn't come in for 3 days. Does that mean you don't feed your baby? You put that baby to the breast immediately. Because what comes out of the breast in the first 3 days is a thick, creamy, yellow substance called colostrum. And colostrum is vital. It's vital for the development of the baby's brain. It's vital for the development of the baby's immune system. I was talking to a farmer and he said if they have a cow that dies while giving birth to a calf, they've got to get that calf onto another cow that's just had a baby, because if that calf doesn't get the colostrum, he said we might as well put the calf down, because it will never be very strong. Isn't that interesting? So how important it is. And you see, as soon as the baby's born, the baby should go straight onto the breast. Within the first hour of life, the sucking instinct is the strongest. So that baby should go straight on. And when the baby goes straight on the breast, the sucking at the nipple stimulates the release of hormones that cause the afterbirth to come away. So very important for the baby to have that colostrum in those first 3 days. Did you know that colostrum is the highest cholesterol containing food on the planet? Why does a baby need cholesterol? For the development of the brain. Let's go to the other end of the scale. How many people today in their latter years are suffering from dementia and Alzheimer's and they're on a fat-free diet? Don't make any sense at all. So it's very important for the baby to have that colostrum in the first 3 days of life. So how often should the baby feed? I used to feed my babies about every 2 hours. But there's a way to feed and there's a way not to feed. The baby should face the breast with a hand either side. If the baby's wrapped up and feeds like this, it draws the nipple and the nipple can get quite tender. So if the baby is feeding on the left breast, the baby's right arm should be behind the mother. So when the arms are behind the mother, then the baby's face on the nipple. Because many times the nipple gets very, very tender, because the nipple's not used to being sucked so much. So I used to feed my babies one breast at a meal. And what that meant is that the nipple, each nipple's getting a 4-hour break. And I found that the breast adjusted very well. My last few babies, that is what I did. So the babies are feeding every 2 hours, maybe every 3 hours. The old Dr. Spock regime from about the 1950s said every 4 hours. Never feed the baby under 4 hours. But I was a little bit of a hippie, a little bit of a back to nature lifestyle, and I just used to feed my babies when they needed it. But I also tried to give a little bit of a break. And the breasts adjust depending on how much the baby sucks. If there's a lot of suck, there's a lot of milk. If there's not much suck, there's not as much milk. One lady said, I didn't feed my baby, I didn't have enough. You know, what we can do is stimulate that nipple and the breast will produce more. My daughter Emma had twin girls, they're 19 now, and she breastfed both of the girls for, I think, about 2.5 years. And she used to drive on the car with this big, I think, 2-quart bottle of water with a a tube coming out of it, sucking on water as she drove. She drank a lot of water to produce enough milk for 2 babies. So if one lady can feed 2 babies, then it won't be hard for one lady to feed 1 baby. And a mother's milk is perfect for her. Even if a mother is living on donuts and Coca-Cola, her baby will still get the best milk. Now she'll suffer. The hair will fall out, the bones will get weak, the teeth will fall out, but the baby will get the best. And of course, the better food that you're eating, the better milk for the baby. But remember, the baby gets the best, and if the mother's not eating well, it's her body that will suffer. So it's important to eat well. What about vaccination? I'm sorry I cannot talk about child health without talking about vaccination, because that's one of the reasons so many babies are sick today. As one man said, and he was a doctor, he said, I'm not going to vaccinate my baby because at birth they vaccinate them now against hepatitis B. Who gets hepatitis B? Drug addicts and prostitutes. So why are they vaccinating newborn babies? One lady said her grandson was vaccinated and was unable to feed. For 6 months he had to be fed with a tube because he lost that sucking reflex with that vaccination. When people say, should I vaccinate? I say, I'm not going to tell you what to do. It's your choice. But if every parent said, I will vaccinate my child, if you can show me the safety studies, I will vaccinate my child if you will sign this piece of paper that you will be accountable if my child has any reactions, and go to the chemist or pharmacist and ask for a printout of exactly what's in the vaccine. So it's important to become informed. But if any parent did that, not many babies would be vaccinated. You see, the body's being designed to heal itself, and it'll heal itself when you give it the right conditions. So what if a woman cannot feed? I had a girlfriend and she had a particularly long nipple, and her baby had a particularly flat roof of the mouth. And that's very rare. It's very rare. Most women will be able to feed their babies. And remember, in the first half hour of life, that's when the sucking reflex is strongest. So what would be the best milk if a woman cannot feed? Probably the closest is goat's milk. And babies have been fed goat's milk for thousands of years. I think we all grew up with the story of hiding in the mountains with grandfather, and feeding the goat herd and drinking the goat's milk. And it's one reason why I've been banned in Australia, because I advise goat's milk for babies. They can't breastfeed. And one of the reasons I've been banned is because they say that it could be lethal. Now, no baby has died from goat's milk yet, so it's a possibility. I'll leave it up to you. But you have a look at the size of a baby goat compared to the size of a human. Very similar. And you have a look at the size of a baby cow and the size of a baby human. There's a big difference. Yes?
Does it have to be raw milk?
Does it have to be raw milk? No, it doesn't. I think I've got 3 grandbabies that were raised on formula goat's milk, and they did very well on the formula goat's milk. If the baby is given raw goat's milk, personally, I would think that was superior, but it'd have to be from very healthy goats, and it would have to be, a fairly clean operation. And I think that's why I have come under attack, because I think I must have mentioned in one lecture about the raw goat's milk, but I'll leave it up to the person. You have a look at a cow at 1 year of age. They're almost the same size as their mother. And have you ever tried shooing the cow into the paddock? They're not very bright. So if you want a milk that's going to cause your child not to be that bright and put on a huge amount of weight, what are you doing? I do acknowledge that there are some countries where maybe there's farmers that dairy has been in their heritage for thousands of years, those babies can usually handle the cow's milk because of the heritage. So my friend has an orphanage in Nakuru, Kenya, and they always give the babies soy milk, organic soy milk, and they go well, but they had some Maasai babies, and the Maasai babies did not do well on the soy. So my friend's husband bought a cow, milked the cow, gave it to the baby Maasai, and they flourished. Because the Maasai have been having cow's milk for centuries, so it certainly has a lot to do with the genetics. So if a person has cow's milk in their heritage, often they certainly can handle a little bit better. But I have found one of the number one causes of eczema and asthma in babies is cow's milk. So if a baby has asthma or eczema, very important that the cow's milk stop. Most formulas today are made on the cow's milk. And I also believe that the best milk is not the powdered milk, but as I said, I've got 3 grandchildren who were raised on the powdered goat's milk, and they did well on the powdered goat's milk. So when do you give a baby food? And I mentioned this the other day, there should be 3 things present. Number 1 is the baby can sit. Number 2, the baby can feed itself. So babies are putting things into their mouth probably from about 5-6 months, so that's not the only thing. Also must sit, and they're not usually sitting till about 7.5 months, 7.5 months they can sit. The teeth. Now, I was reading in the book Breath. So one chapter's called Inhale, one chapter's called Exhale, and one chapter's called Chew. And they show that teeth and gums aren't developing as they should because people aren't chewing hard things anymore. And that's why the first food I gave my babies was a piece of celery or a piece of cucumber, something hard. Now, one of the reasons why a lot of parents don't do that is they think they're going to choke. You know, there's a big difference between choking and gagging. All children will gag. What's that? That's a gag reflex. That's very normal. That's why they must be sitting. But when a child has had nothing but slop, and you know what slop is? Mashed up rice cereal, mashed up vegetables, there's no chewing. So if the child is brought up just on mashed up things, pureed things, and then at the age of 18 months you give them a piece of apple, they don't know how to chew, a big lump gets stuck in the throat and they may choke. Can you see there's a difference between gagging and choking? But if the first foods that babies are given are solid food, they're sitting upright, they're chewing, then every now and then there'll be a gag, then it used to happen every meal, and up it goes, the child doesn't bother at all. But that's one of the reasons why a lot of parents or adults don't give children solid things, because they're scared that they will choke. So what many health professionals tell mothers today is from the age of 4 to 6 months to feed their baby rice cereal. And the promise is if you feed the baby rice cereal, they'll sleep through the night. So let's have a look at teeth. So the first teeth that are formed are a top and bottom. So it's four at the top, 4 at the bottom. And usually, babies will get those teeth anywhere between 7 and 12 months of age. So they usually begin coming around 7 months. All my babies got theirs about 7.5. I do know that one of my grandbabies, in 3 weeks, they felt a bit of a tooth. And there's some variation. Now those teeth there, they're called milk teeth. And the reason why traditionally they've always been called milk teeth, because that's what babies should be having, milk. That should be their main food, is milk. But when these three things are present, which often are around this age, so the food is really just taste. It's taste time. So taste time means when you give them something to eat, they've got a tummy full of milk already, so they're not going to eat a lot. Because milk should be their main food. That's why it's called milk tea. So this is when you give them a piece of cucumber, give them a piece of celery, give them a stalk of a lettuce leaf or a cabbage leaf, and those little teeth will get in there and they'll suck that juice out. Or we used to cut off the corn off a cob of corn and just give them the rest. Oh, they'll suck away on that for a long time. Or a piece of apple. If you're worried that there might be a lump of an apple, you can put the apple in a net bag and they'll suck and suck and suck. They'll suck on that. That's another reason why it was banned. It's claimed that they might choke on the net bag, so that's how it's why it was banned. Crazy stuff. You can even go to the pharmacy and buy little net bags. Now, I remember sitting at the table with my little grandson Lennox. I think he was about 2 months old. He has a piece of cucumber. You know, by the end of the meal, he's eaten most of the cucumber. There's lots of little tiny bits on the table, and there's lots of little bits on the floor, and a few bits went in. It's taste time. It's taste time. Their main food is milk. Do you know what that means? You don't have to do any prep. How nice. How busy. You don't have to do any prep. And maybe by the time they're 11, 12 months of age, you might steam a piece of broccoli, you might steam a piece of coffee, or steam a piece of carrot. And then you put that on their tray, and they look at the colour, and they pick it up, and they feel it, and they taste it. But when you mash it all up together, they don't know what they're having. So it helps them to develop taste and sight on the colour and the different textures of the foods. But the first food I ever gave my babies was raw food. And then maybe getting to 12, 1 month, 13 months, a little bit more. Next teeth are the molars. And the molars come through at the back here, and they've got 4 cusps on them. And what molars do, molars grind. And what do we grind? We grind grain. And when the molars are through, that's when the glands in the mouth, they release a salivary amylase called ptyalin. And ptyalin is the enzyme that breaks down starch. So what's starch? That's all your grains. There's your potatoes, your breads, your cereals, cakes, cookies. So when do the molars come through? Molars come through anywhere between 14 and maybe 22 months of age. So what this means is no baby should have any starch until the molars are through. And when the molars are through, then the ptyalin's released, and that's the enzyme, the salivary amylase, that breaks down starch. Now, I first heard about this when I was in Camden Children's Hospital. My first daughter had whooping cough. She didn't get my colostrum because I had hepatitis. In fact, I couldn't feed her until she was 5 weeks old. And that's all I can think, because when she was 6 weeks old, she went blue in the middle of the night, so we rushed her to the hospital. They said she had whooping cough. She was hospitalised for 6 weeks. So for 6 weeks, I sat by my baby's bed. And because of my seriousness of my baby, they changed vaccinations from 3 months to 2.5 months. Yeah, sorry about that, it's because of my baby. So when I came out of that hospital, I was militant that people had to vaccinate. Because I was told that my baby got whooping cough because people aren't vaccinated, but you don't have vaccinations at all. Makes absolutely no sense. I look back now and know it's because my baby didn't get my colostrum, so her immune system was compromised. But she had to be resuscitated one day because she began spasming without coughing. So I got to know the male nurse that resuscitated her. I was 23, he was 38, he was in charge of the malabsorption syndrome, and he just happened to be walking past and he saw Emma's arm moving. He ran to the bed and she was blue. So he revived her. When Emma was discharged at 4 months, she was 7 pounds. So she was the second little baby. But you know, she just got stronger and stronger and stronger, and she's the mother with 7 children today. But I got to know this guy quite well, and he said, my ward, malabsorption syndrome ward, at Camperdown Children's Hospital, that's the biggest children's hospital in Australia, he said, this ward is full of babies with malabsorption syndrome because they were given starch too young. I was 23. I was 23 when I heard this. And I just thank God that I heard that, because that greatly influenced how I raised all my babies. So I didn't give them any starch. And none of them have allergies. And I think one of the reasons is because they weren't introduced to starch too late. Let's have a look historically. Did you know historically babies were not fed food? Do you know what that means? Einstein, Galileo, Mozart, Rembrandt, all the great, brilliant minds of times past, they were fed food. Did it affect their brains? And that's what mothers were told. Your baby will not develop properly unless you give your baby. Start giving your baby cereal at 4 to 6 months of age. Did God make a mistake? Did he make a mistake that there's not as much iron in the second 6 months as the first 6 months? God doesn't make mistakes. The baby's requirements for iron in the first 6 months are far higher than the second 6 months. That's why breast milk's so perfect. Because it's perfect for the baby at every single stage.
So what do you, like you adopt? Little breastfeed. Yeah.
What if you do adopt? Adopting, the best would be your goat's milk. Yeah. Yes?
Tongue ties, I think, are way more common with babies now. I had it with my 3rd child.
Yes. Do you know that tongue-tied, I'd never heard of it when I had babies. But I would have to say nearly every grandbaby that is having to have their tongue cut. My daughter Emma not. That's because my daughter Emma makes everything she feeds her babies. And if you have a look at a lot of breads now, they've got folic acid, and that folic acid is inorganic folic acid, and it actually it interferes with the development when the baby's developing the tongue. Isn't that interesting? Because you're right, in fact, my great-grandbaby had to have 3 tongue ties, back and side and front. And his mum eats a lot of processed bread. So again, we've got to go back to what we're eating, yes?
I didn't vaccinate, my brain vaccinated. But I get asked a lot about vitamin K. Because it's the
Vitamin K, yeah, vitamin K. The only reason a baby would need vitamin K at birth is if the mother hemorrhaged severely. If the mother hemorrhaged severely, that baby will need a vitamin K injection. But the problem is they just give to every single baby. But I didn't let them give it to any of my babies, because I didn't hemorrhage at birth. But they don't tell you that, because a friend of mine, she hemorrhaged she died. She nearly died, she hemorrhaged so badly. And she refused the vitamin K injection, and within 3 weeks the babies looked like the baby's been hit. It had big bruises all over it. They rushed him to the hospital and they discovered he was vitamin K deficient. And they linked it to the mother bleeding heavily at birth. So they gave him a vitamin K injection and the whole problem was solved very, very quickly. That's how I discovered that's why they do it.
Barbara, Miriam's asking, what can she eat to have a smooth delivery naturally to avoid epidural?
The best thing you can do to get a smooth delivery is make sure you have a diet that's high in fibre, generous proteins and great fats. And squat every day. Squat every day through pregnancy. If you can't squat, start by squatting with your back against the wall, 10 minutes a day. And then you stretch that whole area, the whole pelvic area, ready for birth.
Wow.
So my last birth, I squatted all through pregnancy, well, a little bit every day. And then when I was in labour, I squatted with every contraction. And when William was born, I think I mentioned earlier, the whole baby came out with one push with the bag and tape. Squatting really gets the whole area prepared for birth. Some babies are just not interested in food. But my son James, he was not interested in food, so I didn't give him any food. So he didn't eat solid food till he was about 16 months of age. Now you never hear such a thing today, do you? In fact, a lot of mums think that there's something wrong with their baby, and relatives, pressure from relatives, come in and say, your baby is not going to develop, your baby's brain's going to suffer if you don't give the baby food. Well, just remember what happened 100, 200 years ago. Babies were not fed food. In fact, some babies were still breastfed when they were 5 or 6 or 7. So let's look at James. He just was not interested. So at 16 months, he started to have little bits of food. And I look at James today. He's a master builder, so he must be smart. He's a master craftsman. He's an incredible artist. He's a musician, plays the panpipes beautifully. Last time he came up for holidays, if you go to Thailand, you know, they have those things on string and you dip it in petrol or something and then you do all those fancy things. If you've been in Thailand, they do the fire dances. That was the James doing that. So he didn't suffer. In fact, and when you look at him, he looks like a bodybuilder. He's real hard stoked. So my point is that it didn't weaken him. And my daughter Emma, she didn't give her twins any food till they were 16 months of age. I was there, I said, they're still not eating. And she said, one's got teeth, the other hasn't, so I'm waiting till they both have teeth. And we'd sit to eat our meal, and the twins were in their little high chair with blocks and wooden toys and sucking on that, and they think they're doing what you're doing. But I know my 4th child, Julia, she was just grabbing for food. And so I only ever gave her either fruits or vegetables until her moles were through. Now when she was 9 months old, I fell pregnant with my next child. And when she was 12 months old, she sat on my lap and spat out. And that's when I realised the milk must be changing. She didn't want my milk anymore. So she's the only baby that I had on bottle for a while. We put her on Prosobi, like an organic sorghum, and she did well on that. Because milk should still be the number one, especially even for the first 18 months. So the milk is important. So what do you feed the children then? Well, we just fed them what we ate. So I'd only ever feed them at mealtime. So at breakfast time they'd eat, and then at lunchtime they would eat. And at night, if they're hungry, maybe they have a banana, maybe they have something little at night. But when they're 18 months, I breastfed my babies for about 2.5 years. My last baby, I breastfed him for 3 years. So mid-morning, they're having a breastfeed. Often mid-afternoon, they're having a breastfeed. But what you've got to remember is children, when they say they're starving, they don't know what that means. The children often will say they're hungry when they're bored. And if you feed them between meals, then they're not going to eat a proper meal. And if they don't eat a proper meal, a couple of hours later, they're going to want something else. So it's important to feed them. There was a rule that at a table, you couldn't leave the table. So it's very important for children to have guidelines. And what we found is that if you don't feed them between meals, they're hungry. They're hungry and they'll sit and they'll eat. Now, because I know that children will live on bread and cereal, am I right? Pasta, bread and cereal, that's what they live in if you let them. So when you sit to the table, when we sit at the table, if it was breakfast, I always just have fruit there. And if they're hungry, they'll eat. And it wasn't until the fruit was half eaten, then I'd bring the porridge, or I'd bring the bread and lentils, or I'd bring whatever we're having. Because if it comes on first, they just want to eat bread. Same with lunchtime. So when I have always a salad on the table, if children don't like vegetables and they're hungry, you put a plate that's got raw carrot sticks, snow peas, celery sticks, cucumber sticks, and maybe a bowl of hummus dip or avocado dip. I can promise you they'll eat. Because they're hungry, that's all there is. The children do like the raw fruit, it's tastier than the cooked. Now when you have a look at little ones, they'll eat anything. I know my mother-in-law was minding this little 18-month-old and 3-year-old, and the little 3-year-old wanted a couple of caterpillars in and put them on the bench. And she looked down and they were gone, and there was the 18-month-old eating the caterpillars. So they'll eat anything, and I know my daughter said that they have a lot of ladybugs come in the house in Wisconsin, I think in the winter, and she went in to get her baby out of the bed, he was in a little cot, and he was eating the ladybugs. There were squished up ladybugs.
At what point do you stop doing milk?
At what point do you stop doing milk?
I missed that, so I'm sorry.
It can change at different ages. When they've got a full head of teeth, as long as they've got even the 8 at the front and the 4 molars, when the 4 molars are through, basically they can eat everything. And so the milk can ease off them.
But I guess you rephrase that question. Is there a point you should stop, like it's not good for them?
Not really. Not really.
Because I've heard that, you shouldn't give kids milk anymore. It's really not that great for you. Of course, a lot of the milk we drink now is not.
That's right. So the question is, when do you stop the milk? It changes. One lady told me she's still feeding her little one at the age of 5. The only time I don't think it's good is when that 5-year-old wants to be fed every half hour. And this also shows that the mother must be in control of the feeding. And I don't know about you, but I will stop every half hour for each child. And again, they don't need it. What I found that as my children were getting close to weaning, it would maybe just the early morning, or it may be just, going to sleep. So it's just easing them out of it. And as the child gets nearer to, it's just easy to distract. One lady said, I've been told I must stop feeding my baby because I'm pregnant. The baby's 12 months old. I said, there's no need to stop. But you must make sure you're well hydrated and you're eating well, because the only person that will suffer is the mother. The baby in utero will get the best. The second best will go to the breast milk. And so just make sure you're eating well. And some of my girlfriends, they fed right through the pregnancy. So when the next baby's born, they've still got a couple, they've got a toddler and a baby on. But again, the mother must have guidelines for the child. The child must know that it's not milk on tap whenever they want it. And it's important that those guidelines be there, so when baby comes, there's not friction. Yes?
So in that situation, the child's 12 months old, will the mother still make colostrum, if I'm saying that correctly, with the next child that's coming?
Yes, she will.
Okay.
Yeah, there's still adjustments there. Yeah?
Have you dealt with women who have a tendency to have preeclampsia?
Yeah, preeclampsia is the high blood pressure in pregnancy, and that can well, they claim that it possibly can be dangerous. So again, the mother must do everything she can to give her body the right conditions, so no stimulants, and being well hydrated, exercise every day. Yeah. And I guess every case is a little bit different. Tomorrow we're looking at heart, so the things that we're looking at in heart can be applied to the mother with preeclampsia. What about fussy children? Well, it always interests me, why are they fussy? And the mum and the dad must be united. Very, very. And the mother and the father be united in how they're going to feed their children, how they're going to raise their children. And that has to be done behind closed doors. Got that? Not in front of the children, because otherwise the children are watching who's going to win this fight. And also, if children see disagreement between mother and father, sometimes they can use that. So it's very important that mum and dad get together and also agree on what they're actually going to do with their children. Yeah?
Can you rebound while you're pregnant?
Can you rebound while you're pregnant? Absolutely. In fact, when baby's born, rebound. That rebounding will get the mother's uterus toned nice and quickly, and also put the baby to sleep. So rebounding is great through pregnancy, even through birth, between contractions, and also when baby's born. With the rebounding, your body will tell you how much to do. If you just had a baby, you go very, very lightly. You might just do the health balance. Yeah?
While you're on the rebounder, can you share your thoughts on the kind, not the metal cord, right?
Yeah, the best rebounders are the bungee straps and the Bellicon. The Bellicon is probably one of the best. Yes?
While you're pregnant, like exercising, can you go into like what you should not or should do?
Well, exercise is very important. I can't think of anything that you should not do. Because remember, pregnancy is not an illness, birth is not an illness, it's a very natural thing. And unfortunately today, it's almost being seen as an illness. In fact, I think babies should be born at home amongst friends. It's really not an illness. That's why the mum and the father have to find out as much as they can about birth and what happens there. And ideally you get a midwife or a doula and prepare for the birth then. So back to feeding babies, what about sweets? Well, I used to make desserts for my children maybe a couple of times a week. But they're always, of course, made out of honey or maple syrup and natural things. My daughter, Julia, she said to me, she's got little ones, she said, my daughter eats anything. She said, but my girlfriend's kids, they only eat pizza, pasta and cereal. And I came to the conclusion that parents dictate the tastes of their children. Because if they're hungry, they'll eat whatever you've given them. But if you give them the choice of a peach and a sweet sugar biscuit, they eat the sweet sugar biscuit, they're not interested in the peach. So I just never gave my children candies, lollies, or sweet sugar biscuits. I just never gave to them. Yes?
Barbara, have you seen the date syrup?
Yes, the date syrup's good. I know my grandchildren, a big treat after a meal is a date. Mm-hmm. And they know they can have their date when they've eaten all their stuff, all their lettuce and all their potato. Yes?
At what age can you start giving honey?
At what age can you start giving honey? Oh, you could give honey from 2.
2 years.
But even the honey syrup that we're going to make in our next lecture, they can even have a little dot of that. People say, don't give babies honey, but I'll tell you what, they don't see the question giving the baby Tylenol.
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah,
Because I know she's 15 months, that's why I'm asking.
I know it's
I'm
far
a
worse.
kid.
Yeah,
I just want to know for the allergy, that's all I was asking.
yeah.
What about the toddler that's already used their pasta?
What about the child that's already given, will only eat that? Will you be surprised what children eat when they're hungry? We had a 2.5-year-old girl that I used to mind, and her parents had separated, and sometimes when parents separate, they acknowledge the children after a bit because they feel guilty. And all this little girl wanted was to drink fruit juice. And so when they drop her off, the father would drop her off, she had a little backpack full of these little long life juice things. They're called poppers. And she just used to go. And when a child gets like that, I think she's actually hungry. And she's just doing it with pop. And she hardly eat a thing. So one day I said to the children, let's get Rosie eating. I said, hide the bag and take, so I said to the children, go for a big walk down to the creek, give her lots of water from the creek, and then bring her back just for 2, because that's when we had our main meal. And so they brought her back just for 2, and she walked in the door and said, Papa, and the children said, look, lunch is ready, and they brought her over to the table, Peter showed us this. My youngest was the same age as Rosie, and they sat at the table and just smiling the whole time. The smile says to the child, I love you. So you never get angry with a child, and you never yell at a child, because that tells the child that you don't like. That's why you have guidelines, and you have consequences with any guidelines that are broken. You should never get angry. Well, this little girl ate, and ate, and ate, and ate. In fact, she had a really good meal. And then her father came to pick her up, and he picked up the bag, and it was heavy, because it was full of poppers. He hadn't drunk any. He said, what happened? I said, we were Rosie eating. And she relaxed and became a happy little girl, because she was being well fed. Usually she was terribly emotional. My little boys used to wait on it like servants. Yes, Rosie, come here, Rosie. They'd fuss all over her, and they had to do a thing, they just go. And it just shows that when a child is well fed, it certainly affects their emotions. So that's how we got Rosie eating. Yes?
Monk fruit for an alternate sweetener.
Monk fruit for an alternative sweetener, apparently so. I've never used it myself. Yes?
Jackery?
Jaggery. Apparently that's an unrefined sugar, isn't it?
I'm not sure.
I know I've seen it in Dubai. I've seen jaggery in the markets with lumps of this dark stuff. Yeah.
So for women who've had a C-section, and then the doctor's always saying, well, if you have other children, you'll need a C-section, can they get natural birth after that?
Do you know that there is an organisation called Vaginal Birth After C-Section? Once a C-section, not necessarily so. And I have a friend, she's a lawyer, and she had a terrible first birth. Didn't know anything, we had an epidural because they induced her. You know what my daughter says, the cervix is like a peach, and when it is ripe, you can just pluck it. It's soft, it'll open, baby will come out. So many going too early, they're not ready, they're given the drugs to bring the birth on, it's hard and fast, they can't cope, so they're given an epidural, they can't push their baby out, so then they cut and then fly, and it just gets... I just read a story about a lady, a Polish lady, who was in Auschwitz. She was a midwife. She delivered 3,000 babies in 2 years. Didn't lose a baby. Every baby born naturally. And you look at these women suffering from severe malnutrition in the worst environment didn't lose the baby. So what's happening in our hospital? So, yes, she can. So my girlfriend, who's a lawyer, she fell pregnant again with twins. She was not going to hospital. She got a midwife and she delivered her breech twins at home.
Wow.
It's very nice. So, yeah, one Caesar doesn't necessarily mean always Caesar. Yes.
I was just gonna say, I had my fourth by C-section because she was born with spina bifida, and I had 3 later naturally, and my son was born frank breech, and I had him naturally at home.
Yeah, because often in hospital now for babies breech time is Caesar. But traditionally babies were born naturally breech. Just make sure you squat so you get that whole area open. And so, if you've got, I know some ladies, grandparents, and their grandchildren eat terribly, but when they come to their house, guess what? There's only one choice, and it's healthy food. It's healthy food. So even if that is the case, it's your home, and it's your rules. And a lot of people think you've got to feed children every couple of hours, but you don't. I never did. I just fed them at meal times. But I've seen with some children, they keep leaving the table, so they hardly eat anything. Well, if that happens, you're going to have trouble a little bit later. So my little grandson, Lennox, they said he gets really hungry, so you have to feed him. And I just went, oh. So I noticed half an hour before the meal, you can tell he's getting a little bit, his behaviour's not good. So I said, if you sit very still, you can have an apple. Don't peel it. Don't peel the apple, just give them the apple. And if they're hungry, guess what? They'll find a way in. And they might spit out the skin, don't worry about it. Remember, they need crunchy food for their teeth. And I noticed also, getting to lunchtime, he drank water. I always give them water between meals. And I noticed he was getting a little bit irritable again. So I said, well, if you sit very still, you can eat a carrot. How long does it take him to eat a carrot? So by the time he's eating the carrot, it's lunchtime. Because if I give him a sandwich, there's no way he's going to want lunch. So, a carrot. And I know I was at my daughter's house, and the meal had finished, and her son said, I'm still hungry. She said, all right, you can have a carrot. That's a real test. You can have a carrot. It takes a long time to eat a carrot, and it's very good for your teeth, very good for your gums. So you want this jaw to get strong, you want the teeth to get strong, the gums to get strong. So hard food. And they won't choke. The children that choke are the children that are used to slop, and then they're given food and they don't know how to chew. And they don't chew it properly, so they swallow a lump and start to choke. Yeah?
So for kids, I would say like between 3 and 8, like what kind of breakfast stuff?
What's having breakfast? So when my grandsons come, I think it's always good to start with fruit, and especially if you're still getting the meal ready, fruit is great. Give them an apple. I always let my grandsons, doesn't matter what the age, they can cut up their own banana, give them knives. I don't give them the sharpest knife in the drawer, and I don't give them the bluntest. So I let them chop up their bananas. So what I would do is millet porridge. They love millet porridge. Then they chop up the banana. They put some teaspoon of honey in the middle. They put maybe soy milk on top. They love that. And then Michael and I, because we have the sourdough toast, avocado and lentils at breakfast, then the grandchildren have that as well. Well, I can tell you what, when they have that breakfast, you do not hear from them for a long time. And so some prefer the sweet, which is the porridge, or some prefer the sourdough toast with lentils on top. And then for lunch, it's always a salad. We always start with salad. And baked potatoes, baked sweet potatoes, stir-fried veggie maybe, and always a leg in it. Might be shepherd's pie, might be a dal, might be... So that's always our That's always our meal. Every day it's a different legume, every day might be different veggies, every day might be slightly different salads. You can get some delicious salad dressings that we make. I love the tahini with lemon and olive oil, a bit of water, crushed garlic salt, very nice. So the dressings, spark up the salad, yeah.
What if someone has a problem with nightshades? Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, usually if someone has a problem with nightshades, it's usually because there's an inflammation in their body, but there are so many other things that you can use. Yes?
Is there a certain amount of like honey and molasses or syrups that they should have on a daily basis?
Well, I always limited the honey or the maple syrup because they just go berserk. When their brains aren't fully developed, they'll have half a cup of your lemon. So I always, I notice my daughter too, when it's waffles for breakfast, she's the one that administers the maple syrup. Otherwise they just have too much. Yeah, so I think it's important to limit that. Because again, you can dictate the children's taste by what they eat. But you also have to be careful of grandparents. And that's why it's important for mother and father to be united and say to his grandparents, this is what we're doing, and we know you love your grandchildren, but we're, this is very important to us. So they might say, well, I'm the grandparent, I can do what I want. Well, they might learn that if they might be able to have the children, if they don't. You don't want to start with threats, of course. But what one lady did was she said to the parents, to the grandparents, oh yeah, okay, you can have fruit juice ice blocks. You can have that. So that was because they wanted to give the children, instead of lollies or candies, they could have fruit juice ice blocks, which of course that could be had between meals because it's just juice. So yeah, it's working with so everyone's happy. And I know my daughter, she had to start giving options on what her in-laws could give the children, because otherwise all this nasty stuff was coming in. And we wave goodbye and then turf it all, and get the money back on it. So it's good if you can dialogue. Some relatives are easy to work with, some are not so easy to work with, because what can sometimes happen is all your hard work can be undone. Where it can be very difficult is when the mother and father have separated, and maybe the father or the mother can be a little antagonistic. That's why you work with them. Keep the channels open as much as possible for the sake of the children. Because the children need to see a united front. And of course that's where dialogue can happen. Well, this is my child and I can give my child what I want, that can come into it. And that's where dialogue and say, well, what about this option? What about that option? Could we do this? Could we do that? And come to an agreement there. So it's very important when you're raising children that you have guidelines. So I've got a girlfriend, and she fed her little boy till he was 4, and he would march up to her, pull her top up, have a bit of this side, a bit of that side. Who was in control of that feed? Child. And I've got some friends that did not want to feed their children past 18 months because they didn't want that to happen. Well, that never happened with me. Mine, if I was feeding a toddler, they would have to ask permission. And I would say, not now, sweetheart. Or I'd say, when you're going to bed or when you wake up. So you have the guidelines of the home there. And also, children should never eat breakfast until they've had water. So what the mother does, because the child won't think about it, she goes to the child an hour or half an hour before, and if the child doesn't want to drink water, you can say, look, I'm sorry, sweetheart, you won't be able to have breakfast. Because that's the rules of the home. Do you know what I used to do with my little grandchildren? especially the real little ones, I'd say when you drink half a glass of water and you have a wine, maybe they have water bottles, you can have some salt, and they love salt. So when they've had that much, they can have some salt, then they have the rest of it. And I used to say to my grandchildren, have you watered your garden yet? The garden inside their body. And sometimes I come out in the morning, they say, Grandma, I've already watered my garden. I say, oh, that is so good. And it's also very important, if the child is going to eat the food, the child must be part of preparing the food. Maybe they don't in full preparation, but setting the table. And this is a great way to teach children counting. How many people are coming? How many forks? And I know one girl serviettes, she called them napkins, didn't look really neat. That's because 2-year-old Lennox had put the napkins on the table. And they weren't really neat, but that's how they start. That's how they start. And when you get children to work, then they experience the joy of accomplishment. And then after the meal, then you sit down and say, okay, so we're going to have this person's going to clear the table, this one's going to empty the compost bin, this one's going to dry the dishes, so you allot it all out. Because so many children today don't know how to work. And the day doesn't come when the child suddenly comes in the room and says, I'll work now. That doesn't happen. So you start them at a young age. In fact, if the child's going to eat, the child helps to clear the table. In many homes there are dishwashers, so maybe before the meal the dishwasher's empty. After the meal, one child rinses, the other one puts it in the dishwasher. So I see many homes where children don't receive anything. And I was reading a report in the newspaper about a British paediatrician that came to Australia. He said, I thought slavery had been abolished. He said, it's alive and well in most Australians' homes. It's called the mother. The mother is the slave of the household. And I love this quote from an old book. It says, the mother is the queen of the household. She's there to guide and counsel the little princes and princesses. She's not the servant, she's not there to serve. So make them part of the daily regime, make sure they fold their clothes, teach them how to fold their clothes from a young age, show them how to make their bed. And if they don't want to make their bed, well, I'm so sorry, but you can't go and play with your friend until, So you just start from a young age or putting their toys away. You can't play with the blocks until the animals are put away. And in many homes this doesn't happen, but the earlier you start, the easier it is. It gets much easier. And of course in homes today, you've got something called technology. And it's interesting how children all want technology. So there must be rules around technology. A lady said to me, my little 7-year-old girl, she can be on by phone for half an hour every Sunday morning. But she said every time I turn around through the week, she's grabbing it and getting onto it. I said, it's real easy. Every time she gets on it through the week, it takes 5 minutes away from something. See, the best way to teach children is cause and effect. Sunday morning comes, she's ready for the phone. I say, sorry, sweetheart, you can't have it because you used it all up through the week. Oh, she will not be happy. And if she throws herself on the ground, there's a very good cure for tantrums. It's called a bucket of cold water. Child says that was cold. That's right, sweetheart. You're getting a little bit hot under the collar, but just I wouldn't do it on the carpet.
Just write your parents a book.
Yeah, here. And if they're really throwing a tantrum, try and get them to go out there, and then that's a good place for that. It's a wonderful tonic effect. And if they tell their mother, did you throw cold water? She said, a little bit hot, just cool it down with that. And smile. You see what we do? You smile. When you might not smile when they're all upset. Just say, sorry, sweetheart, but you were getting a little bit hot under the collar. then you can train them out of that very quickly. In fact, the next time they try and throw a tantrum, just reach for the bucket. You'll be amazed at how quickly they stop. Like you said, you must have thrown a lot of buckets of cold water, it's actually not one. Because what I did, I started when the children were babies in the arms. There were times they could feed, there were times they could not feed. So you start from a young age, you're tender and you're kind, but you're firm. So by the time they get to the age of throwing tantrums, there's already some very clear guidelines in them. So that's the best way to train the children, and that is from their will, cause and effect.
Teenage tantrums as well.
Teenage tantrums are very easily, the phone goes. The phone goes. My sister, she waited till I was asleep and she got the phone. Go on. And what she did was, when the kids were at school, she took the television and she took the hard drive on the computer and put it in the neighbour's shed. She said, when the kids came home from school, where is it? They will come back when the room's tidy, when you've provided by the rules of the home. So you just, whatever it takes. It's got to hurt, because if it doesn't hurt, I'll just do it again. But the technology is a good one. Is your room clean? Yes. Homework done? Yes. Dishwasher empty? Yeah. Okay. 15 minutes. If you go 20 minutes, that's going to take off the next day's 15 minutes. You see that? Just have, it's just black and white. Just black and white. And that's how you can have. So we're going to do a breakdown. Yeah.
Question from you from the web. Alexis is asking, can babies or toddlers have Celtic salt?
Can babies or toddlers have Celtic salt? Absolutely, they love it.